In the shadowed heart of a world where sunlight has long been an afterthought, vampires are the undisputed rulers of the night. Humanity has always been oblivious to this shadow empire, wandering through the dim-lit streets of their cities, unaware of the watchful eyes lurking from above. The vampires have cultivated their existence for centuries with ruthless discipline, guided by an ancient code that keeps their existence secret and their dominance secure. But tonight, a strange light glints on the horizon, an omen of change seen only by those who rule the darkness. Across the dark expanse of a concealed underground council chamber, Lord Castiel, an ancient vampire leader with crimson eyes and skin pale as bone, addresses his followers. Centuries old and wise in the ways of secrecy, Castiel is both revered and feared among vampire kind, his every word law. He presides over the Council of Shadows, a coalition of the most powerful vampire clans. His clan, the Eldrin, has remained unchallenged in their authority for centuries, a supremacy won through blood and cunning. But tonight unease prickles through the room. "We live in a time of unseen dangers," he intones. "There are forces stirring that could jeopardize all we've built." At Castiel's side stands Liana, his loyal second in command, a vampire renowned for her unmatched agility and icy resolve. Once a ruthless huntress, Liana's loyalty to Castiel is unwavering, though not without sacrifice. She watches him with a guarded expression, ever attentive, yet a hint of doubt flickers in her silver eyes. She has sensed a disturbance in the air, strange hums from the upper world that defy explanation, and her instincts warn of an approaching peril that even her master seems unprepared for. The council hall is filled with murmurs as vampires exchange uneasy glances. Despite their long-standing order, the various factions remain tense, fragile alliances binding them in a truce that has endured for centuries, though just barely. To Castiel's right sits Seraphine, a rival clan leader known for her defiance and fierce independence. Her eyes narrow as she regards him, suspecting that he has hidden the true extent of the danger. "You speak of threats, Castiel," she challenges. "Yet we see only shadows and rumors. Are we to hide in fear from whispers?" Castiel's gaze hardens. "I do not lead by fear, Seraphine. But I lead by knowledge. And I assure you, this is no mere rumor." But even as Castiel speaks, his words are interrupted by the chamber doors swinging open. A lone figure staggers in, his once pristine robes torn, face ashen with terror. It is Kale, a scout sent to observe the distant lands where strange lights have been reported. The council falls silent as he approaches, his every step a testament to the horrors he has witnessed. "Forgive my intrusion, Lord Castiel," Kale gasps, falling to his knees. "But the lights! They are not of this world." The room is filled with sharp intakes of breath, eyes widening in alarm. Kale recounts what he has seen: colossal, hovering vessels descending from the sky, creatures of indeterminate form and technology far beyond any mortal or vampire comprehension. The invaders are silent but methodical, dismantling human strongholds with precise, cold efficiency. They operate without mercy or hesitation, and already, parts of the human world lie in ruins. "We thought ourselves unchallenged," Kale whispers. "But they do not fear us. They do not even see us." Liana's hands clench at her sides, her mind racing. Vampires are creatures of predation, masters of stealth and dominance. To be ignored, dismissed as insignificant, is a blow to their pride, a concept beyond their understanding. Beside her, Castiel's face is carved in stone, yet she senses a shift in him, a vulnerability she has never seen. "Their presence threatens our very survival," he finally says, his voice like ice. "If these invaders disregard the humans, they will eventually discover us, and they will seek to dominate or destroy. We cannot allow it." The council stirs with renewed tension. Some demand immediate retaliation, while others urge caution, advocating for deeper concealment and adaptation rather than outright defiance. But Castiel silences them with a raised hand. "There is no choice but to confront this threat," he declares, his voice carrying a weight of finality. "We cannot remain hidden and simply hope they overlook us. This is our world, our domain, and we will defend it." Liana's heart races at his words. She knows the vampire clans are far from united, and an external enemy could either forge unprecedented alliances or shatter them completely. The Council will have to put aside their rivalries, trust each other in ways they have never done before, and reveal themselves as a united force. And if they fail, they risk losing not only their supremacy but their very existence. As the Council disperses, she lingers, glancing up at Castile. "Are you certain we can win this, my lord?" she asks, her voice barely a whisper. He meets her gaze, and for a brief moment, the mighty Lord Castile seems almost human. "No," he admits softly. "But I am certain of one thing: if we do not fight, we are already lost." Outside, the strange light on the horizon grows brighter, casting an eerie glow over the vampire city concealed in the earth's shadows. And as they prepare for what could be the greatest battle of their existence, each vampire in that hall senses a shift in the air, a feeling they have not known in centuries: fear. But beneath that fear lies something more powerful, an instinct for survival, a resolve born of the shadows. As the Council prepares to mobilize, Lyanna steels herself. They have faced many enemies, but never like this. And she knows, with a fierce certainty, that they will either reclaim their night or perish defending it. With the stakes laid bare and tensions high, the vampires are poised to face an enemy they scarcely understand, an invader that threatens to unravel the shadowy world they have so carefully constructed. And as dawn nears, the dark heart of their existence beats with a singular, driving purpose. Earth is their domain, and no creature, earthly or otherwise, will take it from them. The first night of the invasion fell like a shroud over the city, casting an unnatural pallor across the landscape as massive, metallic vessels descended from the sky. They moved with a precise and eerie silence, hovering above human settlements with the watchful stillness of predators observing prey. The vampires watched from their hidden corners, cloaked in shadows, as the intruders unfolded their plan with meticulous efficiency. Each craft emitted a dim, sickly green glow, staining the night with an otherworldly hue. Castile stood at the edge of a high, shadowed rooftop, observing the devastation with grim concentration. Beside him, Lyanna gripped the hilt of her blade, her jaw clenched. Below them, humans scrambled in terror as beams of light shot down from the alien ships, disintegrating entire buildings in moments. Alien creatures, draped in armor, wielding weapons that seemed forged from nightmares, swept through the city streets, merciless and unfeeling. "This isn't just an invasion," Lyanna murmured, her voice barely audible over the hum of destruction. "It's an extermination." Castile nodded, his face set in stone. "They've come to claim the earth, and they do not differentiate between vampire and human. To them, we are all insignificant." In a nearby alley, Seraphine, the fierce leader of the rival blood-born clan, observed with a mixture of awe and fury. She was known for her independence, yet tonight she felt an unsettling vulnerability gnawing at her. The vampires, for all their strength, were unseen and ignored by this invading force, as if they were mere shadows in the dark. "What are they?" she hissed, her voice filled with disdain. "They act like they own this world." "They intend to," Castile replied, meeting her gaze across the rooftops. "And if we do nothing, they will succeed." For the first time in centuries, the vampire clans put aside their ancient rivalries. Castile's authority brought the council together, uniting them against the common enemy. Word spread quickly through the hidden vampire network, from the secluded blood dens in the mountains to the underground labyrinths beneath the cities. Vampires who had once only seen each other as competitors now stood shoulder to shoulder, ready to defend their domain. As night fell again, a council meeting was called within a deep chamber hidden far below ground. Castile addressed them, his voice resonating with steely resolve. "These invaders have no fear of us, and perhaps no knowledge of us. But this gives us one advantage, the element of surprise." The gathered vampires murmured in agreement. For centuries, they had been masters of the night, hunters who moved unseen. Now, that very skill would become their weapon. Lyanna stepped forward, her voice carrying an edge of impatience. "They may have technology and numbers, but they are not invincible. We know our land, every shadow and corner of it. And we have strengths they cannot imagine." At this, A murmur of dark excitement spread through the council. The vampires had survived for centuries by blending into the night, preying on those who feared the dark. Now, they would turn their skills and savagery against an enemy far more formidable. But their first encounter with the invaders was brutal. Under the cover of darkness, a small team of vampires led by Liana and Seraphine moved silently into the city streets to test the aliens' defenses. Liana darted forward, her movements a blur, striking one of the alien soldiers from behind. Her claws sliced through its armor, but the alien barely reacted. Instead, it turned on her with impossible speed, its eyes glowing an unsettling shade of green. The vampire attackers quickly found themselves overwhelmed. The aliens' armor absorbed their blows, and their weapons discharged pulses of energy that seared flesh and shattered bones. Even Liana's agility and Seraphine's ruthless ferocity were nearly useless against the relentless precision of their enemies. They barely escaped with their lives, retreating to the underground lair as wounded and shaken. Liana's pride was bruised, but her spirit remained unbroken. She looked to Castile, blood seeping from a wound in her side, yet her eyes burned with determination. "We can't fight them with strength alone," she admitted, gritting her teeth. "They are too well prepared, too advanced. We need a new approach." Castile's eyes narrowed, considering her words. He, too, bore fresh scars from the night's battle, reminders of the formidable challenge they now faced. "Agreed. We will have to be more cunning, more unpredictable." As they strategized, Seraphine voiced a radical idea, her expression defiant. "We can't do this alone. The humans may be weaker, but they are many. With them, we might stand a chance." A murmur of dissent rippled through the council. For centuries, the vampires had regarded humans as little more than food. To suggest an alliance was unheard of, even offensive. Yet, facing extinction, Castile saw the wisdom in Seraphine's suggestion. "An alliance with the humans could offer us numbers," he said slowly, his voice cutting through the objections. "If we can show them that we are as threatened as they are, perhaps they will fight with us. We have kept our existence a secret for centuries, but this is a battle that transcends our ancient laws." Reluctantly, the council agreed, their aversion giving way to necessity. The vampires would reach out to select human leaders, those who had long suspected the presence of supernatural beings in their world. They would reveal themselves not as predators, but as allies in a war for survival. As dawn approached, Castile stood alone on the rooftop, watching the alien ships gleaming coldly in the sky, symbols of a force that would not stop until every trace of life was wiped from Earth. They had claimed the night, but the vampires would not give up their domains so easily. He turned to Liana, his most trusted lieutenant. "The battle ahead will cost us greatly," he said, a quiet resolve in his tone. "But we will remind these invaders that Earth is not theirs to take. It belongs to those who have claimed it in blood." Liana nodded, her face set with fierce determination. "We will make them regret ever setting foot here." As the council dispersed, the vampires prepared for war, steeling themselves against the looming threat. United, with human allies and centuries of shadows at their command, they would fight, not only for survival but to prove that no matter the enemy, the night belonged to them. The city was silent, shrouded in an unnatural stillness as the alliance between vampires and humans took its first steps toward countering the alien invaders. For the vampires, secrecy had always been their greatest shield, but now they stood exposed, fighting alongside those who once feared them. Under Castile's command, small units of vampires and human fighters moved through the abandoned streets, shadows blending into darkness, every figure poised with a single purpose: to reclaim their world. On the front lines, Liana led a team through a maze of crumbling buildings, her senses tuned to the hum of the alien drones patrolling the skies above. Beside her, a human soldier named Garrett clutched an improvised weapon, a modified flashlight with a high-powered beam designed to disrupt the aliens' tracking sensors. His face was set with determination, though his eyes darted nervously between Liana and the dark alleys surrounding them. "Are you sure this will work?" he whispered, glancing at Liana. "It has to," she replied, her tone unyielding. "The drones rely on light and sound to locate targets. We just need to get close enough without triggering their sensors. In the distance, an alien drone hovered, its green light casting eerie shadows over the ruins. With a quick nod, Liana signaled Garrett to power up the beam, and the device hummed to life. A sharp pulse of light sliced through the air, blinding the drone and scrambling its sensors. It faltered, spinning erratically before crashing to the ground. In moments, Liana and her team descended upon it, dismantling its components with brutal efficiency, stripping it of parts they could later use to strengthen their defenses. But their victory was short-lived. The wreckage emitted a low, pulsing signal, an alert that summoned a swarm of alien soldiers, who swept down from the sky in response. Clad in dark, seamless armor, the aliens moved with the precision of a machine, and their weapons fired pulses of energy that tore through stone and flesh alike. "Fall back!" Liana shouted, leading her team into the narrow alleys as they evaded the alien forces. Around them, the city became a battlefield, with vampires and humans alike fighting desperately to hold their ground. Garrett followed close behind, his face pale but resolute. Elsewhere, Castile commanded the main forces, his strategic mind analyzing every move, searching for weaknesses in the alien formation. The invaders were formidable, but their strength was also their flaw. They were rigid, predictable in their approach, and relied too heavily on technology to adapt. Castile had ordered his forces to disrupt the aliens' communication systems, and their success had already led to several skirmishes in which the vampires gained the upper hand. However, the toll on both sides was evident. Many vampires lay wounded, their ancient strength no match for the raw power of the alien weapons. Humans, too, fell beside them, though their determination and resilience shone through as they fought on despite the overwhelming odds. In the midst of the chaos, Seraphine cut through the battlefield, her movements a deadly blur as she struck down one alien soldier after another. Her eyes glinted with fierce satisfaction as she reveled in the fight, her ferocity unrestrained. To her, this war was a chance to prove her worth, to show that even an otherworldly force could not break the will of the vampires. But just as victory seemed within reach, an enormous alien craft descended, casting the entire battlefield in shadow. From its base emerged towering figures, unlike anything the Alliance had encountered before, alien generals, their armor thicker, their weapons more lethal. The sight of these new foes sent a chill through the ranks of the vampire and human fighters. "We need to regroup," Seraphine called out, her voice cutting through the din. But before she could retreat, one of the generals fired a weapon that emitted a burst of energy, and she was thrown back, crashing into the rubble. Liana rushed to her side, helping her to her feet. "Are you all right?" Seraphine's face was pale, but her eyes blazed with anger. "I'm not done yet." Together, they faced the advancing alien generals, their strengths combined in a synchronized attack. Liana darted in, agile as a shadow, distracting one of the generals as Seraphine struck from behind, using every ounce of her strength to pierce the armor. Meanwhile, Castile rallied the remaining forces. His voice carried through the battlefield, a beacon of resolve. "Hold your ground! We are not just fighting for survival, we are defending our claim to this world." With renewed vigor, the vampires and humans pushed back, finding small victories even in the face of the overwhelming alien might. Garrett, who had fought by Liana's side since the beginning, watched her in awe, recognizing her strength and leadership. Just as hope began to flicker, one of the vampire scouts arrived with critical news. The aliens had a command base deep within the city, a nerve center from which all their operations were controlled. Destroying it would cripple the aliens' coordination and weaken their defenses. Castile seized the opportunity. "This is our chance," he said, turning to Liana, Seraphine, and Garrett. "A small team can infiltrate the base and disable it. We may not have another opportunity." Liana nodded, determination flashing in her eyes. "Then let's make it count." As the small team prepared to embark on their mission, the battlefield quieted, anticipation thick in the air. Vampires and humans alike watched as they moved toward the heart of enemy territory, a united front against a foe that threatened to consume them all. The night stretched out before them, dark and foreboding, but their resolve was unbreakable. With each step, they carried the weight of their entire world on their shoulders. They would either break the alien grip or fall in the attempt, but either way, they were determined to show the invaders that Earth's night belonged to them alone. Liana, Castiel, Seraphine, and Garrett moved as shadows through the deserted streets, the alien command base looming ahead. The towering structure pulsed with an unnatural green light, casting strange shadows over the city. Every step they took was measured, deliberate. The survival of both vampires and humans rested on their success. Infiltrating the heart of the enemy's operations would be dangerous, but it was their only chance to cripple the aliens' hold on Earth. As they reached the entrance, Castiel held up a hand, signaling for silence. He surveyed their surroundings, his centuries of experience allowing him to detect even the faintest movement. Satisfied, he nodded, and the team slipped inside the alien stronghold. The interior was cold, metallic, with walls that seemed to hum with the eerie energy of the invaders' technology. Garrett's eyes darted around, his face a mask of determination mixed with fear. "Are you sure this place even has a weakness?" he whispered, glancing at Liana. "Every fortress has a weakness," she replied, her voice steady. "We just have to find it." They crept deeper into the base, each footstep echoing in the cavernous halls. Alien figures moved in the shadows, their backs turned, oblivious to the intruders. Liana's heart pounded in her chest as she led the group, her every sense on high alert. After several tense minutes, they reached a central chamber where an array of alien machines buzzed and whirred. In the middle of the room stood a massive console, a command nexus that controlled the movements and attacks of the alien forces across the city. Castiel pointed to it, his face grim. "There it is. If we destroy that, they'll lose coordination. Their forces will be scattered." But before they could act, a massive figure appeared from the shadows. An alien general, clad in impenetrable armor, its eyes glowing a menacing shade of green, blocking their path to the console. It was larger and more powerful than any they had faced, and its weapon hummed with deadly energy. Seraphine stepped forward, her face twisted in defiance. "I'll distract it. You get to the console." "No," Castiel interjected. "We'll face it together." Without another word, the team moved into action, attacking from all sides. Seraphine lunged first, her speed a blur as she attempted to slice through the alien's armor. But it countered swiftly, its weapon discharging an energy pulse that knocked her back. Liana and Castiel darted in, their movements synchronized, each strike calculated to weaken the alien's defenses. Garrett stayed behind, frantically studying the alien console, searching for anything that looked vulnerable. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he worked, trying to override the alien system with the makeshift tools he had brought. The console was complex, covered in symbols and controls that defied human understanding. But there was no time for hesitation. The battle between the vampires and the alien general raged behind him, filling the air with sounds of metal striking metal and snarls of fury. Liana landed a hit on the general's side, causing it to stagger, but it quickly recovered, retaliating with a force that threw her across the room. Castiel and Seraphine moved in to cover her, relentless in their attacks. As Garrett pressed a sequence of buttons, the console emitted a low warning sound, and the hum of energy grew louder. He gritted his teeth, pushing forward. "Come on, work!" he muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. Finally, a spark shot out from the console, and the lights throughout the alien base flickered. The general froze, its movements faltering as it turned to face the malfunctioning console. Castiel seized the opportunity, driving his blade into the general's weakened armor. With a final burst of strength, the alien fell, collapsing in a heap of shattered metal. Garrett looked up, his face lighting with relief. "It worked! I think I disabled their command link." A tremor shook the base as the system malfunctioned, and outside, the alien forces visibly faltered, their formations breaking apart. The coordinated assault that had once terrorized the city was now thrown into disarray. Castiel nodded, satisfaction glinting in his eyes. But their victory was short-lived. The base began to rumble, its systems destabilizing from Garrett's tampering. A voice in an alien language echoed through the halls, announcing an impending self-destruct sequence. They had only minutes to escape. "Move!" Castile commanded, ushering the team back the way they had come. They sprinted through the corridors as alarms blared around them, the walls vibrating with the force of the impending explosion. As they neared the exit, the base began to collapse, sections of the ceiling crashing down around them. Seraphine stumbled, debris blocking her path, but Liana grabbed her arm, pulling her to safety just in time. Together, they burst out of the base, barely escaping as the structure detonated in a massive explosion, green flames lighting up the night sky. They regrouped a safe distance away, watching as the alien command center disintegrated, its fragments scattering over the landscape. The alien forces, now without guidance, fell into chaos, retreating in confusion. Castile, breathing heavily, turned to face his team, his expression one of both relief and pride. "We did it," he said quietly. "Earth is ours again." Liana managed a weary smile, glancing at Garrett. "We couldn't have done it without you." Garrett nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Guess vampires aren't so bad after all." As dawn approached, casting the first hints of light over the city, the vampires and humans shared a rare moment of unity, knowing they had secured their survival. The night was theirs once more, reclaimed from the alien threat that had dared to challenge them. But as Castile gazed out over the city, a shadow crossed his face. They had fought hard, risked everything, but the scars of this battle would linger. He knew that the world they had defended would never be the same, that their alliance with humans marked the beginning of a new era, one where the vampire's secrecy had been sacrificed for survival, their existence no longer hidden in the shadows. With a final glance at his allies, Castile turned, leading the vampires back into the darkened streets, their steps merging with the silence of a world that, at least for now, was safe. The night remained theirs, reclaimed and protected. But as they disappeared into the shadows, each vampire knew that the future held its own threats, and that they would be ready to face them, side by side with those who had once been their prey.